For this section, we're going to have some demos of news you can use, tools that may or may not work. Some of the values that Jay and I identified as things we'd be looking to see happen, and I would add the mobile question, though I noticed on some of the sites we looked at today that people already have mobile apps, which was interesting. We'd like to hear more about those. One big one is lowering the bar to participation for the community development piece, which we've talked so much about. News gathering tools. We talked a little bit about templates and topics pages. I don't know if we talked about them, but we probably should have. Things such as that. Beat notes or beat books. What did you call it? Beat books? Beat books. We've done that with a spreadsheet too. I don't know how effective it is, but we've done it. What we have a hard time with is the debriefing part, not the people wanting to use them, but the people actually giving up the information in a usable form. Barriers we see, WordPress. So many of us are on WordPress. I heard Drupal, I heard customized. I don't know what else I heard, but what are the workarounds within that format? And we saw some variations of that and things we've looked at today. Editorial workflow, which is one we have experimented with, and Rich Jones, who's the current editor of the local East Village, will be here in a few minutes and is going to show that to us. Advertising tools, if any of those are out there, we'd like to see those. And then the whole idea of turning journalists into geeks, making tech literacy very accessible. We have, our hat tip to that is we've started this year, we don't know how many students it will have, but we have started a track in computational and digital journalism that is housed in the computer science department, but it's a journalism track for students who are wanting to be tech savvy. It's not a computer science major because it doesn't have enough coursework in it, but it is part of their web-based track. Right, Jay? Am I saying that right? And we developed that this year, and it starts this year. We got some nice attention for it. We'll see if we actually get students, but we thought if we built it, they would come. And we very intentionally housed it in the undergraduate program because we think that's where the energy and the flexibility still is. The right point at which to get them, probably high school would have been even better, but we're college-based. So, with no further ado, Melissa offered to show us something new. Is she back? Oh, there she is. So you want to come show us that? Come right up. I'm going to give you my chair. And tell us what you're showing us, and take a mic, and I'll move aside.
So I wanted to show you a link. I sent you an email with the link.
Oh, do you want to come up and just put it in? Or do you need it? Oh, okay. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Here you are. Is this it? No. I think it's a later one.
Oh, yeah, your
Maybe.
role is, I think it's that one.
Is it this one?
So you're the one right there. Yeah.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So this is from what I was talking about earlier, our public forum with Diane Ravitch. We've been using a new tool. Does anyone use Cover It Live? So a few folks are familiar. It's sort of a live blogging platform where you can invite people ahead of time. If you scroll down, you can see where we've used it. So during this public forum, which was about school reform, we had a few people who were sort of invited ahead of time, like the mayor and a state rep, and I was there, and a reporter from the local daily. And we invited some people ahead of time who we knew were sort of our trusted commenters. And they were either sitting in the room with a laptop or sitting at home. And their names appear in bold on this discussion blog. And as you go down, it's sort of a way, if you, go back up. It's called Cover It Live. One word, no spaces. Cover It Live. Yeah.
Cover It Live.
So I think the word appear, if you go back down, you can see it.
I can show you an instance of it. I have it going right now in the background.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
All right.
Where?
Facebook.com/SMNNY
SMMNY.
Right, no, go there, and on the tab, live events on the left-hand side, you click that up, and just click on that.
So this is what it looks like. So as we're having sort of a public forum with real live people talking on stage, we're also having this starting. And then so people who are sitting at home can watch a live stream of the discussion we're having about school reform on video. So that's set up by our partners in television.
Cool.
And then we have a Cover It Live, which is basically like a discussion room where everyone else can meet and talk about it as it's going. So
But it doesn't live stream. Does it?
Streams in real time, so nobody's tweeted. Somebody tweet real quick with the LOCNYU hashtag. Middle Collective, that's what I'm using right now.
But I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't film it. It doesn't
No,
give you,
so we separately had the local TV station film our event, and then so on your computer at home, if you can't go to the discussion, you load up Cover It Live, and you have maybe another page or your television with the live stream of our discussion. And then this is just a way to sort of weigh in as it happens. So usually I'll kind of narrate what's happening if someone's not watching the live stream, and then people are weighing in. And we had a great time. And you can actually make, I guess you have your Twitter, you can feed Twitter feeds into it.
You can let people
Cool.
come in and moderate.
Yeah.
Also put Ustream or live stream widgets into it so you can see.
You can have video. Yeah, we have our site, the Valley Independent, which is sort of our sister site. They use it a lot for, like, they had a hostage situation, so they had a reporter there with her laptop, sort of live blogging from the scene, and then other readers are asking her questions about what's going on. And then so she's tweeting, and she also, would take some video and put it up there. So it's just sort of a fun way to cover stuff. And we use it to kind of build engagement.
cool, thank you. Anybody else have something to share? Come on up. Do you want the computer?
No.
Okay.
ScribbleLive.com.
You want me to write Scribble Live?
Scribble Live, yep. I'm Dan Victor, I'm from Philly.com, and I'm the wrong person to describe this because I've never actually used it, but I've been looking into it. It's kind of they consider it an upgrade on Cover It Live. If you go to see features, I guess, they argue that, well, first of all, has anybody actually used it? Anyone? Was that a hand? No, okay. So they boast that it's really integrated very well with mobile. You can do the same kind of things as Cover It Live where you can feed in tweets, but I see it more as potential for a reporter on breaking news, not just to have tweet length. Boy, how do I explain? Like I said, I'm the wrong person to do this. I think one thing you can do is if you have a story that's unfolding over several days, instead of, I don't think you would keep something open on Cover It Live for several days, but you might be able to have links to an article, tweets brought in there, updates to a story that maybe wouldn't be an entire blog post or an entire story itself, but small incremental updates. But I know a lot of organizations have been going to this. There is a price to this. That's the only thing. If you click on plans there, freelancers can do it for $20 a month, but I looked into it and it was in the thousands for a full news organization. So something to consider, but it does look pretty interesting.
Cool. Others? Come on up.
Thanks.
What's your
I
foot
think,
up?
can I, or
Be
maybe
my
type,
guest.
or you can sit back
No,
down, let me just
I'll
type
get
in
out,
2
I'll
things.
get out of the way.
Or maybe 3 things. Oh,
Sorry.
Okay, so give me just a second. And I'll explain this.
Barcelona.
I want to show this first part because I read in a few of the blog posts that maps are generally considered to be very gimmicky, and I really fundamentally disagree with that. I think that we're just really beginning to kind of push the envelope of what's possible. And the tricky thing for us is, and I think that's one of the biggest strengths that we have kind of in our organization, is we're not venture capital financed. We really get to spend a lot of time thinking about things because we don't have to meet some kind of sales objective, and try to really come up with processes and kind of like search experiences that really mix up and remix information based around people's interests as it relates, for example, to location. So there's just a very small part of what we're doing. But I'm going to pick on these guys. And so the scenario that we came up with was, I want to go out and go to a particular type of location. So in this case, I'm going to walk you through the restaurant example. And once I've selected this place, I want to do other things nearby. You know, I mean, the classic scenario is, let's say, dinner and a movie. So actually, yeah, let's start this way. Okay, so I see this map of downtown Barcelona. Oh, thank you, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm even better with the Mighty Mouse or. Yeah. So I see this map of downtown Barcelona, and I can see there's like a gazillion different types of cuisines. But you know what? I'm really only interested in a specific part of town. And so what will happen is the map will refocus and now show me only the cuisines that relate to this. And you know, I feel like Japanese, so I'm going to pick Japanese. So this now reduces immediately to show me only the Japanese restaurants. This is nice. This is just a nice regular search experience. But I'm going to focus in on this particular restaurant because I can see it's near a metro stop. And so all those points you saw on the map, that was actually that publisher's data. I'm visualizing their data. And they also, of course, have information about, you know, what movie theaters are nearby, so that's pretty cool. But even better, I can mash up and plug into this, for example, their events calendar. I can see, you know, I want to go there, grab something to eat, and then afterwards maybe, you know, go to some kind of event. So what events are taking place nearby on the 26th? And now I can click on any one of these points, get a little summary, and if something really interests me, I can jump through and, you know, get the full-on event description. So we call this content by location, right? And this is a very different scenario to, for example, the regular events calendar, where my priorities are slightly different. I may care less about specifically where that event takes place, and I really just want to limit my choices very quickly. So they have a very extensive event calendar, also because, you know, they get a lot of user-contributed events, and so I can see it's already 6 pages, and that's way too much for me. So now I just want to very quickly, by process of elimination, reduce things. So I only really care about festivals and fairs. Wonderful, that's already reduced the list. And maybe business and careers. So, I mean, does that seem gimmicky to you or useful? You know, it's using Metro. It's using our content platform. It's using Metro Publisher, but I again, I don't want to. I want you guys. I really enjoy sharing, so I want to share stuff that's not just Metro Publisher, which is why I'm calling this up. This is done by a. We kind of track various publishers and technologies pretty much all over the world. And this is, I think, very interesting for you because what I noticed in the community discussion was there was a lot of talk about, you know, what's going on here and now, but we can't, I think, really be a cohesive community without understanding where we come from. And so I'm showing this as an example of something that, this is Germany's largest news magazine, Der Spiegel, and they use this platform to kind of really build a history of things that are going on. And I want to show specifically one example. So I go to the site, and down here, I have this part right here, and I'll translate because I'm going to assume that not all of you speak German or understand German. And the question is, and this was posted by a reader, what's happening in this photo? This is somewhere downtown Magdeburg. I found this photo. What's the story behind this photo? And so this is really cool because there was a recent collaboration actually with Der Spiegel and the New York Times on a story where someone found a bunch of photos that were obviously from the Second World War, and you know, they had some weird, I mean, it was like Nazis, and they were traveling, what was going on, and what, you know, there was a story behind those photos. What was the story behind those photos? So the New York Times posted this on its blog, and Der Spiegel posted it on this site, and within no time, people were contributing as part of the comments, and basically I think they found the answer in 3 hours. Yeah, I was going to say 4. So, and I think also this is a way better experience than the blogging metaphor. I think that's really why I'm trying to show these two examples is don't just keep thinking in terms of a particular platform. In you know, just don't look at everything as a blog or you know, there's so many different ways how we can visualize and show information in a way that it is compelling and not gimmicky. You know.
That's great. Has anyone done any work on calendars or listings that takes it in a different way? I didn't notice that on most of the sites. There didn't seem to be a big effort at calendar or listing, or maybe we just missed that. Can anyone speak to that? Nope. Come on. Thank you. Go on up. Take a mic. Here, have a mic.
Hi, my name is Ben Jevons. So this is not a hyperlocal site, but it's a calendar thing that's an interesting interaction, I think.
And who are you with?
Yeah, I'm with a consulting company doing web development. We're here and in Denver called Growing Venture Solutions. So if anybody's not familiar, ixda.org is the Interaction Design Association.
ixda.org.
And it's an interesting thing, I think, speaking about calendars and way to find content. So there's this recent discussions calendar here on the right side. And if you hover over the dates, you get a list of the discussions that happened on that date.
So that could be used for listings, for example.
Yeah.
Just the content is
So rather than
flexible.
just having to click into each day individually, you're able to just hover over and see the content.
without having something that's 10 feet large.
Yeah.
But can it be made really large with everything showing?
Not in this case. It doesn't expand for each content. Like it lists the.
Is that possible?
It certainly is. Yes. Not.
Where you
not
could
like
like
right
make the
now,
day
but-
explode and then you could really see everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be interesting. You don't have to raise your hands, just come on up.
Our visitors bureau in Richmond, they're in charge of all the attractions, kind of getting together, promoting the region, that sort of thing. And one of the complaints with attractions that the attractions have is, someone mentioned it earlier, you have to send your press release to like 6,000 people, and if you miss one, then it doesn't get in their magazine, and they get mad. Or if someone was talking about having to enter the data themselves, and it's like, well, I already send out a trillion press releases, why do I have to enter the data? So something our Visitors Bureau has done is created a community calendar, which is one database for all the attractions to input the data, to own their own data.
Can we see that somehow?
No,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately.
Very useful.
Well,
Yes.
well, I was talking to someone last night about it. It's a step in the right direction. Yeah. So it's open to the major attractions in town, the Virginia Museum of the Fine Arts, the Symphony, the Ballet, big places like that. And they go in, they put their data in, then the media in town has logins. They can come and then pull it out. That's okay, but I think the more expanded model that would be better is anybody can put their data into this one site. The site's paid for by some sort of regional or governmental authority, so no one has to feel like they need to sell ads on the data warehousing to support the upkeep of the database. And then anyone who wants to pull it out, be it some random guy down the street, if the paper wants to pull out that data, if I want to pull out the data, I can pull that out. I can curate it in the way that I see best. My users will look at it, and then I can sell ads on my curation of the data. I think that's a cool model. Kind of upcoming. I don't know, does anyone use Upcoming? Yahoo Upcoming? It's like similar to that, but kind of privatized a little.
Thank you. Come on up, Mo.
What I try to do is publish a calendar for the week ahead in social media activities in New York City. And I look through New Yorkology, which has got a great website, but not really specific. The mayor's office has a site. There's all kinds upcoming. But what I found really great is Plancast. Any of you guys use Plancast? Plancast.com.
plancast.com. Okay.
And Plancast is where people share what their plans are. And it's really useful in my world, technology, social media. And you can look in here, and I try to go through, and for those who are adverse to that, I publish on my Facebook page a calendar for the week ahead of free stuff, which kind of filters out the $900 conferences that I'll never go see. But Plancast, it sort of taps into crowdsourcing and being able to share, and maybe from the wisdom of crowds, you can actually come up with, and if you're too lazy, you can just look at my page, and I'll have the week's events for ahead.
For tech, right? For social media.
Tech, social media, Silicon Alley, we'll call it.
Okay.
We use one that's pretty practical, but if you go to burstnet.com/calendar, I don't love this, but it works. It's powered by Helios. Does anybody use Helios? And it's a plugin that works with WordPress. And scroll down. You can click on the calendar. It isn't good at categorizing things, but the good thing about it is it's self-serve. So because there were just two, and then there's some, especially during the high season, there'll be 20, 30 things on this. We do pay somebody, it's now going to be my 23-year-old daughter, a little bit of money to, basically to approve these and to solve problems that users have with the calendar, when they submit things incorrectly. We have it, an approval process so that spam doesn't go up there. Anyway, I think we could get a prettier one or nicer one, but it does work and it does save the effort of having to input everything yourself.
Is it used? Is the calendar used?
Yeah, the calendar's used, and we put an we put Google Analytics on this page, and was surprised by the number of hits that come to the page. And also, if you go to the front page, our designer, the home. We actually, if you scroll down, you'll see that we pull the most recent events right there from the calendar. So that actually is good. Automatically you're going to see them, and I see things that way. They remind me that things are going to be there, and I click through to the calendar. So not really beautiful, but it works, and it's free.
Good. So I'm going to ask Todd and Chelsea and Jay to come up and show our new toy that's been in development for, oh my gosh, Jay, how long? We're in epsilon testing now, but we're getting closer. We're getting close. You want to come take the computer? Todd and Chelsea are going to do it, and you're going to talk?
I'll talk. Can you?
Here, Mr. Talk.
Jump through it?
Yeah. So be my guest.
Okay,
Ta-da,
I'm going to give you the
ta-da,
background to
ta-da.
this first. Well, this was developed by the Studio 20 program here at NYU. So the idea of the Studio 20 program is let's teach people journalism by having them work on problems of innovation and to make stuff as opposed to just learn stuff. So our big project in the spring of 2010 was planning the East Village Local with Jim Schechter and Marianne and their team at the New York Times. And one of the things that we wanted to do with that site was 50% of the content has to come from the community. 50% of the stuff at the site has to come from the community. And we just created this goal for ourselves so that we would have to innovate and work hard to reach that goal. And as part of that mandate, we wanted to create a tool that would help us gain 50% of our material from the community. So Studio 20 partnered with the computer science program here at NYU. They have a similar kind of course called IT Projects, taught by Evan Korth, a really fine computer science instructor at NYU, who's also very big on open source and startup culture. He heads New York Tech Meetup, which is a gathering of tech minds and startup people in New York. And he has this course called IT Projects, and IT Projects, they build stuff for partners, often nonprofits. So we became one of the partners in that course. And the initial work on the what became known as the Virtual Assignment Desk, VAD, was done by those students. Then a developer named Daniel Bachhober, is he here? Daniel? There's Daniel. Came in to finish the project and to really lead it forward after that course was over. And Daniel has done WordPress plugins before. And out of it came this. It's called the Virtual Assignment Desk. And its goal is to make community contributions easier. And there are two portals through which community contributions can flow. The first one we're looking at now is the pitch page. And this is a URL. You see it at the top, local East Village, submit a pitch, in which anybody who's a registered user of nytimes.com can come and pitch a story to us. Say, you should cover this, with a suggested headline, a summary, and scroll down a little bit, Todd. Where it is. Do you want to just leave us a tip about this, or do you want to cover this, or do you want to take photos for it, you want to write it, you can tell us that. And when people submit this form, it goes to a queue. Can we see that? That the editor has in his dashboard for WordPress. Okay? And the editor can, at that point, approve this pitch or modify it or rewrite the headline.
I think you have to go in as me.
Yeah, you might have to.
Todd, you need to go in as me because you don't have the access.
Yeah, you need. This is obviously limited to those who have editing privileges, right?
Yeah.
And the editor can approve, modify,
Where is it?
or assign a pitch to a particular contributor, right? And if we're successful at getting the access we need, we'll show you what happens then. And this is all designed as a WordPress plugin to run on the Times modified WordPress blogging system. Would that be accurate, Jim? To say
Just
modified WordPress system that runs all the blogs at the New York Times. But the idea of it, which Daniel could talk about a little bit more when I ask him to, is that assignment desk, what's the URL? OpenAssignment.org is where the plugin for anybody to use should reside, because that's ultimately our goal here. Okay, so do you have the access now? Okay, so if somebody said, this is, we're looking at here is approved pitches, right? And when a pitch is approved, it goes onto another page. Can you show us the page with available assignments? Stuff to cover?
Go back to assignment desk. Where's Daniel? Daniel?
No, we want the page where you can see a list of possible assignments. Right. Yeah.
I think it goes under posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to posts, you'll find it.
No.
Filter.
So we're filtering here by the kinds of assignments that we want to see so that you can actually display a page with assignments that are reserved for certain classes of contributors, right? So we could have a page of assignments that are reserved just for experienced people and another page that's reserved for people who are new to us. We can reserve assignments for NYU contributors. So we can't get this page. Is there a URL for it?
It comes up on mine.
Okay, so let's. Yeah, maybe that's it. See all open assignments. All right, so we're doing a proto pitch here. And we click submit. Then we go to the back end. This is approved list. Where's the unapproved list?
There it is.
Right.
So you can see under status pitch. Right?
Across the top, you have the ability to filter by post type. You can filter to the, on the far right, you have the ability to filter to pitches.
On the far right here.
A little bit. There's a line that links across the top.
Yeah, okay, got it. I think that wasn't showing up because there was not anything in it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me.
are now you lost me. All right.
You can
This-
edit or preview.
This is where you
Okay.
can respond, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
So this would be the editing a pitch, right? And if you approved it, if an editor approved a pitch that came in, what would happen is that a contributor would automatically get an email saying, congratulations, your pitch is approved. And a post would open up in the WordPress system which is eventually going to contain the content for that post. There is no page of pitches, available assignments that we can look at? Because that's what I wanted to show, a public page, not a backstage page. A public page of available assignments. It's on the, oh, go to the blog itself, Jim says?
So you can see all open assignments that
Oh, yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. See, well, as you can tell, we're still debugging this. But in theory, the other thing anybody with a registered nytimes.com login would be able to do is go to a page and see a list of available assignments that are ready for contributors. And they would then be able to volunteer for any of those assignments. And if they said, I want to cover this event, or I want to shoot photos at this festival, then that too would go to the editor and they would be approved, and then they would automatically generate an email telling them what they need to do. So the idea is to automate the process of assigning community contributors and build it into the workflow system so that we don't have to send out endless emails and keep track of all the different people who are doing what. It's integrated into the editorial production of the blog itself.
And a lot of this is visible to everyone, and there's a voting mechanism also.
Right, and there's also built into it, which I didn't mention, a voting mechanism so that you can vote assignments up or down, and the community could begin to register through that assignment page what it wants to see covered.
And there's also a mechanism for not making everything disclosed in case you're looking for
Right, so
some
there are
impact.
there are various filters by which we can either filter the available assignments by classes of contributors, and we can also make them more public or more private, and we can reserve them to certain classes of contributors. Yes, Mo?
It seems like institutionally, organizationally, it's good for control. Then I think about CNN's report,
Right.
and the CBS, which make it easy to contribute. You may not make it to the main page of the CNN. I know, but I contribute to both of them, and it's a fairly easy process.
Yeah.
Which kind of would be encouraging. I think CNN has just had incredible.
Well, they have 750,000 contributors, yeah, so they're doing something right. But the difference there is part of the reason they were successful at that is that the system by which reports are done and the contributors contribute is totally separate from the CNN newsroom. And every once in a while, the CNN newsroom says, hey, we just had an earthquake in Japan. Is there anybody from the iReport who can give us the footage, right? But most of the time, the whole iReport system goes on completely separate from assigning stories to the CNN staff. This is the opposite of that. This is integrating community contributions and staff assignments into one back end. Because if you're a student reporter for the local, you're going to get, ultimately, you're going to get your assignments from the same system that the community contributors are. So this is integrating the community assignment system with the workflow editorial backend itself. You see what I
Where's
mean?
David from Sacramento? Is he here? Is this similar to your system or very different, or what would be the distinctions and what really was the mission of the site as opposed, this is about workflow, is that, tell us.
Yeah, we're not nearly as automated. We're a lot more hands-on than that. We have one person who it's her responsibility to keep in touch with people. She's also extremely organized.
So she's doing it by email in the classical.
Yeah, just email. She uses iRise for scheduling.
From 37 Signals?
Yeah.
Someone else mentioned that too.
Yeah, we're trying to create a system that would kind of replace that informal system of a hyper-organized person doing everything through email.
But I have to say, yours looks fabulous on the external end. It looks so easy and clean.
Yeah, what I liked about that system is something you could insert there, which is instructions. I think this is a lot of where we need to go with community contributions is we need to be able to not only say, hey, go cover this, it needs to be covered, but to try and give instructions or to break down what the ultimate product should be so that it's much more like fill in this form than it is write us this post. Because the number of people who can write a finished post that's at the same level of quality as professional journalists is actually very small. It's probably 1% of your potential contributors can just send you a post that you can run, right? But if we can figure out how to take a piece of finished work and break it down so that it's more like follow these instructions or fill out this form, then I think we're going to get many more contributors that way. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here is we're trying to not only automate the process of getting assignments, but break it down so that it's much easier to complete that work.
Yeah, I think the bigger that you get, the harder it's going to, the more things like this help. As it is now, our general flow goes through, I still find out an awful lot of the stories just because of my connections. And my managing editor, if she finds out about stuff, it goes to our reporters who are also getting up to speed and finding things themselves. We go through them, and then the stories that they don't want to do or that we don't have time to do or we don't have enough reporters to do go over to Casey, who then can put it up on a list, and the community contributors can pick it off of the list.
Right.
Is
And
that
then,
like, you mean just a listserv? Like what list?
yeah, well, she has an email list that she sends out regularly. We do a lot of stuff through email still. She sends, because the thing is with a lot of these things, you still
Because
have
you really
to
look techie, I gotta say.
say what?
It really looked smoother than that.
Yeah, well, I know, but that's one thing is I'm looking at this, and I think we have a larger staff than an awful lot of the sites, and I think that part of that just is because ultimately, I mean, part of the reason that journalism is having a hard time right now is that it is a very high touch business, right? I mean, there's a lot of people have to be involved with the story, and if you look at how many people touch a story that goes through a major daily, it's like 3 or 4 or 5 people, right?
Yeah.
And with us, it's more on the editing and managing people, and then it goes through. We offer copy editing also to all our community contributors, so they can go in, and we actually offer more than that. We'll go in there and help them up to a point, but there's only so much that we can do. But we do try to do copy editing for everybody because my interest in that is for the readers. If something's been copy edited, and the copy editor is actually very activist on things like that too.
But David, didn't you say that people were filing directly to your site?
They can, but when we have a button when you sign up and when you log in, you can ask for copy editing too.
I see.
And we encourage people to. And again, because it's not automated, because Casey deals with people so directly, she can say, really you should get this copy edited and things like that. And we've had people post things that we thought were really good, but they hadn't been copy edited or they need to be edited a little bit. We'll ask them to send it to us. We'll fix it up a little bit and then send it to them. They'll take down the old one and they'll repost the new one.
Oh, interesting.
We had some other questions. Debbie, you had something?
I just was going to say, there's somebody who has created a tool like this. I'm trying to check my email. We haven't started using it. It plugs into WordPress. Yes, that's what it is. It's
Kapost, yeah.
Yeah.
Kapost is trying to do this, yeah.
Kapost has
K-A-P-O-S-T.
K-A-P-O-S-T, thank you. And it also includes with it, keep track of the freelancer's pay.
Yeah.
And impression, how much each story got in terms of hits. We haven't had time to really stop and breathe and learn it, but it does look like a good platform and not too expensive.
Daniel, did you want to add something?
I like the payment part. That's great.
David, did you?
I think the answer to this is yes, but you're capturing their emails. In other words, when that event does occur and you want to solicit, you've got them within your your system, so you can
It's
then
always like
shoot
that,
out a
isn't it?
mass email to say, you know, we hear there's a murder
Yeah,
at Fifth and Vine.
we are able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, within that system.
Um,
That to me is sort of like a incredible value.
yeah, I'm not exactly
You've
sure
got
what
that.
we're capturing. Do you know the answer to that?
They require to log in with their Science account. So, in that process, the new WordPress users created, they submit a pitch, and all of their contact details.
And did they have to sign some sort of, waiver agreement or something like that?
There is a way to add terms. Yeah.
I'll show you what I
gotten to that part
received.
yet.
Yeah.
Oh, bless it.
I'm just thinking of the ways in which you could deploy this for us, and I'm a controlling assignment editor, so I'm immediately thinking about how
Yeah.
you could use this to your.
This is what came into my email.
Right. So this is what the contributor gets. We received your pitch. Thank you. Please log in here to check it out. You can view it here. And if it's approved, you can find it there. That's what that email says, which is automatically generated.
I think you raise a good point that perhaps we ought to think about. The way we have set up the local is that contributions are made under the terms of service of the Times website, and I'm sure everybody's read that. But so that fundamentally people are by the act of contributing, they are agreeing that they haven't stolen the content, they own the rights to it, it's accurate, they
Right.
don't have an interest. This is probably a good point for a reminder of expectations, and that's something we ought to think about.
Yeah, so I was trying to say is that I think the real potential here is when we get very, very good, not only at receiving assignments this way, distributing work, but giving instructions. Yeah, that's to me is like the big unsolved problem and what do those instructions look like? How do we make them so that anyone can understand them? How do we engineer them so that they're easy for non-journalists to follow and so forth?
And I'm sort of also making a larger point here that even though there's an open philosophy of, we'll accept and post, I think that there's a curation function that we still need to provide. And the real question is where
in the
does that take place? Whether it's us soliciting stuff from those.
Well, this system is relatively conservative about that. In this system, you cannot submit a pitch and have it go live to others without the editor handling it and improving it. So nothing goes up automatically in this system. You could have it much more open, but we are very controlled in that sense. So what we're trying to do is get a combination of very open at two points, which is anybody can sign up for an assignment and anyone can submit a pitch, right? So it's very open on those two things, but then it's very edited about what gets approved and who is able to actually be assigned. So we're working in those. If we didn't care about that, we could have an even easier system where you submit a pitch for an article, you guys should cover this, and it just immediately goes up on a list for other people, right? You could do it that way. Just as you can have people directly post to your site without an editor looking at it. But for a NewYorkTimes.com site, we can't do that. Right? So it's a little bit more controlled. Yes.
I just had a comment.
Mike or
Hi, Jessica Durkin, Block by Block. I just had a comment on this concept of the streamlining the production, and I think that this is just a really good way to turn the notion of that sort of that fad that lasted about 10 minutes of the news cafe,
Right, Newsroom as cafe, yeah.
Right, where you go out and you're a reporter or whatever, and you put your newsroom at a coffee shop or another somewhere like that, and then you let people just approach you, and get stories that way. I think I embraced that for about 10 minutes, and then it just seems too impractical. And I think that this is actually a pretty good solution to that same concept of, gathering, being available and open and accessible to story ideas, but like just in a much more organized way.
Yeah. The goal here is you meet somebody in the community that says, I'd love to contribute to BaristaNet. I'd love to contribute to that. And you give them a single URL they go to, right? And it's got the opportunities to contribute right there. And so that's the idea. It's like a page you can go to, and it tells you how to get started as a contributor and actual assignments for you right there. Yeah, so you can use the same system to assign articles that come out of the editor's brain, right? It's the same thing. You can just write the pitch and put it up. So it functions both ways.
Or even just to say you need someone to cover a community board meeting or something like that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rich, do you want to add something about this?
Wait, you need a mic. This is Rich Jones, editor of the Local East Village.
Hello, everyone. I think, for me, and you guys may have covered this ground already, is just that you're able to kind of work on those twin streams of kind of extending the reach of your journalism and also extending the way you can engage with folks who want to contribute. And that's what's most exciting to me about the VAD. And again, you guys have mentioned some of the challenges we face with getting it online, of course.
Including getting some of the things to show up.
Exactly.
Could have used you. Yes.
But I think it's absolutely worthwhile just to be able to work on those twin streams simultaneously. I think it's just really looking forward to getting it into place here.
Great.
So, yeah.
Rich has been working with the system, so he's actually quite intimate with it if anybody has any other questions.
Yeah.
Were there other questions out there? I thought I saw some hands. Can we get a mic back there? Good.
Yeah, hi, Nick Diakopoulos, Rutgers University. My question was, how would you rethink this for a mobile environment, and how would you utilize location-based services to do some interesting new things with
There's
this?
our mobile question. So would someone like to respond? Daniel? Know anything about mobile, Daniel?
There's some nice research going on in Finland right now where they're actually looking at mobile assignments. So you might want to, if you guys are interested in that, you might want to check that out.
Where in Finland?
Mobile news gathering. I mean, it'll be published in English at the Mobile HCI conference. No other response to that.
My initial reaction to some sort of mobile distributed assignment tool is that it would work pretty well for spot reporting. But I'm a techie person, and I like to use my phone, and even I find it pretty hard to write lengthy pieces on my phone. And so I think in this context, a lot of the assignments aren't that type of spot reporting. It's like, here's the news event, we want a quick snap or a quick description of what's going on. And it's not really applicable in that sense.
Yeah, but for a fire, right? You've got a fire, you've got, 25 contributors, 3 contributors losing years on. You always have to do it.
Right, sure, but a fire doesn't really need like more complex workflow tools. It needs like an email address that they know of for the news organization, so they can just email the phone.
Why not just use the phone?
Somebody's got to pick it up. Please use a mic because you're losing people.
So, I had one other question. There was some discussion about moving more toward form-based. How do you sort of explicate the instructions that need to be there to help non-experts engage in this platform? And I'm wondering if anyone wants to make any comments on what it would take to get there, what kinds of stories or content would be most amenable to that kind of reporting, and sort of what needs to be done in order to come up with those structures that need to be in place. And that also raises some interesting computational questions about, well, now I can make this assignment to 20 different people, and I have a structure whereby I can recombine different pieces from different people and sort of create the best story that's a recombination of those different pieces of DNA.
Right. That's a great question. What I think we need, well, let me back up to, the reason we don't have this is because professional journalists or content creators need to mystify their work and want it to remain kind of a trade secret as opposed to breaking it down so that, quote unquote, anyone could do it. I think that's probably the reason we haven't made as much progress as we should on this. But the way you would do it is you would take a familiar form in journalism, like the meeting story, or in sports it would be the game story. No, but it's the same thing, I'm sure, right? You work with a genre.
Do you want me to put
Okay.
something up?
So you take...
It's called narrative science, if anyone wants to check
Okay,
it
so
out.
you take a form like that, and instead of asking people, produce this, you actually break it down into the component parts that make up a story like that, and you just try and translate it into a set of instructions that a non-expert, as you said, could use. And then I think the process from there is just testing it on a lot of people to see if your instructions are actually as clear as you think they are, and they're probably not, so you have to revise them, right? So you have to continually test it on amateurs so that you know that a person not knowing that much about journalism but being present, because now if you're telling me this has already been done and people have already broken it down and that system is already working, that's great.
This actually
For sports,
creates
okay.
stories. You
Yeah.
saw that, didn't you? It actually create a
It can do it
300
automatically,
word
yes.
story.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of
Right.
freaky.
Right. So no, that I did know about that. So what we need is for the actual kinds of content, because we don't actually do sports stories at the East Village. So for the forms of content that we want to be able to do something analogous to that people can film. And so it's breaking the news story down from write us this post to fill out this form. And I think that there isn't any other way to do it except through imitating that process with live human beings.
Can we get Vince a mic?
I wanted to ask, go back to maps. We talked about maps briefly, and a couple of the stories that you sent out, the links that you sent out ahead of time were about somebody, I can't remember, maybe the author is even here, talking about how maps didn't work for them. And I'm a big map fan, and I know a lot of people are, and it seems to me to give an awful lot of flexibility in the presentation that was made earlier. I thought was really interesting on Barcelona. Jay, or anybody, what do you think the future is of something like using maps for storytelling, and particularly tied to things like calendars and things like that? Because is it that people don't think visually in that way? They don't think in terms of maps? Because I know some people do and some people don't, but it still seems to me to be a relatively underused technology, particularly tied to iPhone and mobile apps, because, I mean, how many of us use our GPS on our iPhone to find out where we're going anymore? We don't even look at actual maps, right? So I was just curious what people thought about that.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe others who have
Someone would like to respond? Daniel? Come on up. And also behind you, David.
I can show you a couple maps
Come on.
that I did back in my TBD days. Or not me personally, but someone. If I Google. So to commemorate Valentine's Day, we had people, this is just a very, very simple, publicly editable Google Maps. And instead of just asking for a giant list of how people met, which is what all of this is, you can imagine there's no way people are going to read through all this.
You'd be surprised.
Well, if they're bored enough. So we asked people in DC how they met, and we allowed them to put a little pin in a Google map here. And so you can kind of see that a lot of people met up in Adams Morgan, which is where, you know, the 20-somethings have their drunken escapades. So you could, you know, just, if you're bored enough, you can come around and click on every single one of these. And the way that we did this was, oh shoot, there's not a link here. Oh, here we go. So this is just this is one way we did it. We did this with a Google spreadsheet or a Google form. And so you just simply fill it out, just like Jay said there. And then I think that would be sent to somebody's email inbox, but I'm not totally sure. Another one I'll demonstrate here. So this was for Veterans Day. We started this hashtag on Twitter, but also invited the, I guess I can just, so this one, you just simply say who it was, where they served, what they did. And to do this, you simply would go to this Google map and we're not logged into anything, but if we were logged in, I'll just log in myself real quick. Or can I use you?
Be my guest.
Sure. So now that you're logged in, oh, you know what? It's not showing up. There's supposed to be an edit button right here. So you would click edit, and then you'd be able to drop a pinpoint anywhere here, and then it would let you fill out the caption. And then we had somebody come in and make sure that it fit the style and all that. But it was very simple directions. Nobody was really too confused by it, and we got a lot of participation.
Cool.
Pretty solid. In fact, we should be able to
What was
see
the question?
here. Viewership?
Oh, viewership.
Here there were 7,100 views on this, but we also embedded it onto our site so that people would, we'd actually get a few ad impressions for that. I think we did it for maybe 3 or 4 days around Veterans Day, maybe 2 days beforehand, 1 day afterwards.
Cute.
This is a extraordinarily banal observation on the question. I think that if the issue at hand is organized around location, then you start thinking about maps. And I think what you see too much is that people just slap things onto maps. I think it was Debbie earlier was talking about the using C-click fix to identify where the snow wasn't plowed. Well, that's the time to use maps. You know, there's some of the vendors. I don't want to name the wrong names, but just think that the sort of the hyperlocal solution is to locate every story on a map, and I think that's how it gets its bad name.
Open source software, Ushahandi. Somebody help me with that. Yeah, what she said. What he said. Thank you. That would be fun to play with, or look at as a case study to how information can then be mapped that has some useful purpose rather than just showing it.
Ushahidi is Kenyan, but there's an American iteration of it built on Drupal now. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it. But if you search for Ushahidi, you probably will find something.
How do you spell that?
Ushahidi is U-S-H-A-I. D-I. Yeah.
Usha, U-S-H-A-H-I-D-I. It's an open source tool set, so within 2 weeks it was applied to the Haitian earthquake,
Right.
and it was also applied to the Washington, D.C. snowstorm. So anybody can use it and apply it in a different circumstance.
The interesting thing about Ushahidi, though, is I think it was built on cell phone technology platform.
Yeah, it started out as being applied for Kenyan election violence reporting.
one thing I was going to mention real quick is, you know, you'd think a place like Batavia, New York, where most everybody has lived there their whole lives, and for multi-generations, they'd know where things are. But a lot of times when we have fire or police calls that we post off the scanner, I'll map it. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback because it just really helps people remember exactly where that location is, a quick visual way. So, and I only bring that point up because if you assume everybody knows your community, a lot of times, you know, you just can't really picture where that particular address is, and so the map helps.
So you're
Embed it right in the story, like Google Map.
I'm Steve Jacobs from Street Fight. I actually, there's one really helpful tool. Geocommons.com is an open source. It's an open source data and mapping platform where you can use ArcGIS technology in a really intuitive, good way. It's supplemented by this company, GeoIQ, that does a lot of geographic analysis tools. But really easy to create a map, a helpful tool. One thing I would say is that I think map literacy is an issue. I think we're all quite map literate, but I think a large, there's a large demographic that's not map literate, so I think it depends on your targeted demographic and who you're speaking to. I think it's an important thing to consider.
So we had a web designer in New Haven who just volunteered to create this site for us. It's a crime log. Every month we get the raw data from the police department of all the incidents that month in New Haven. And we send them to this web designer who inputs this into a lovely map. So you can search in a bunch of different ways. You could search by the type of crime. So let's look at murders. There were 2 murders in May, and you can see where those were. And people, this has become very popular for sort of block watches, looking at, okay, here's my street. Let's look at Ferry Street in Fairhaven. You can tell all the incidents that happened in the last month. And we have them color-coded for severity. Yeah, this is, well, it's New Haven. But we, say you live in this one block, you can go down there and see, okay, there was a theft of auto right there, motor vehicle violation. So this is a really popular item, and it has been for years. And it's also, it takes 0 staff time for us. We have a web designer he moved to Boston, but he still runs this for us because he's a nice guy. But it was originally supposed to be automated so we could just use like a little bit of code and Unix and upload the data. But he had some glitches, so he just does it himself. But I also find it really helpful for stories. Like we had a story about a problem bar the mayor was trying to shut down. And he said, well, this has been a real hotspot for crime. So now we can say, okay, in the last 5 years, how many calls to 911 have there been at this corner? So it's a really great tool.
Anything else? Come on up. If you have something to show.
Where do you get the information on the crimes?
They send us raw data from the police department. Yeah. The New Haven Police Department, at our request, sends us raw data every month. Yeah, it's a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm.
Is this public information?
It's public information.
Anybody can request it?
Yeah, I mean, you may have trouble in terms of how the data is formatted, but it's a big spreadsheet. It says date, time, location, and the incident. And we took sexual assaults. We didn't put the location for those. There's some problems with that.
Thank you. Has anyone worked on advertising tools to lower the bar to submitting ads? Paper G sort of stuff? Anybody worked with Paper G? Anyone want to comment on any of that? David? No? I mean, is there anything that works? Because someone was saying how hard it is to create a display ad, how much is involved in that. No comment on that? Howard?
I guess I missed the previous discussion. I guess I missed the previous discussion. Somebody was saying it was hard to create a display ad?
When the question came and then making it work and taking time and staff assured,
Well, when for the first year at least of the Batavian, I wrote all the stories, sold all the ads, built all the ads. I could knock out an ad in 20 minutes. Now I have somebody I pay $15 an hour, and she can get 2 or 3 ads done in an hour. So it's really not, for me, it's just not that big of an expense. And I was surprised when conversation came up at the end of last session that somebody was saying it's expensive and time-consuming, and it's not.
that takes care of that.